Hello, Ipswich. I'm Dr. Hart, Superintendent of Schools for Ipswich Public Schools. Thanks for joining me today, and I hope you've enjoyed some of our shows this year. If you look around, you'll notice that there are no guests today. I wanted to spend some time with the Ipswich community reviewing this year in Ipswich Public Schools, because I think it was such a wonderfully successful year this year. And it's been about 3 years in the making. We've worked together as a team for 3 years now. And I think some of the things that were issues 3 years ago were very proactively addressed. And I think we're in a much better place today. And it's because of our collaboration together. Ipswich has been enormously supportive of the Ipswich Public Schools, and I hope as you look at the work that we're doing, you'll see that your investment is being used exceptionally well. I anticipate as we move into next year that we'll have teams of Ipswich teachers and students going to state and national conferences and sharing some of the work that we're doing in Ipswich Public Schools. I want to take a few minutes and just review some of the key components of our success. And it's foundational success. We know that we want to continue to grow for the next several years. But we've built that foundation with your support, and I wanted to take a few minutes and just review that with you. I want to start with kids. I believe that the experience that Ipswich students are getting in school today has changed, has shifted, and is different and is effective and impactful. Let me give you some examples of how that's played out recently for me as the superintendent. Let's start at the elementary level. So I'm going to tell you just a couple of stories. Recently, I went to both of our elementary schools have done either STEM or STEAM or science fairs this year. And some of my conversations with students about their projects, I think, captures the shift that we're making in Ipswich Public Schools. One such conversation was with a young fourth grade student, and he had done a project. He had to take a look at building something, and he had to do the research and problem solve and actually construct something. His project was a jewelry box for his mother that he wanted to be alarmed so nobody could steal mother's jewelry. So I went through the whole piece, and he went through all of the research. He had gone onto the internet and used research there. He had family members that had some expertise. He went out to the community to talk about how you actually construct the box, what type of materials you should use. He alarmed it. So what were the electrical circuits that you needed? What type of alarm would be effective in warding off a potential thief for his mom's jewelry? So all of that, I talked to him. It was so impressive, talking about the research that he had done, the actual problems that he had solved, and the construction that he had produced. And his product was absolutely beautiful and functional in every way. But the most impactful piece for me is I said to him at the end of it, I said, what has changed you as a learner going through this project? And he said without hesitation, Dr. Hart, what was most important here is I learned how much I could learn from my failures. And for me, in that one statement, it capsulized what we're trying to do with students, is that we want students to come back and be problem solvers and be creative in their solutions and not be thrown off when they first don't succeed. That whole first don't succeed, try and try again, and go out and find out how the better way to build the mousetrap. And this student recognized that. And so that's one of those transferable skills and habits as a learner that we want from our students, because no matter what that child does, if he can look at any project that he's involved in and say, you know what, it didn't work quite the way I wanted to now. How do I make it better? That's a gift that the educational system has given him that lasts a lifetime, not just for the test on Friday or the unit exam at the end of the month. So that would be one example of how we're shifting education at the elementary level. Let me talk to you a little bit about the middle school level. So I recently, again, went to an academic fair run at the middle school and went through students who had identified a social issue that they wanted to research and take a stand on. And there were several different examples of students that had researched, oh, it might be gun control, or it might be issues on the environment. And I listened to the students, and they had done exceptional research. And I often ask students, well, what do you find most interesting? And that's a little bit different than asking a question about the content. And it tells me how deeply they understood the information that they had researched. And to the student, they were able to answer that question exceptionally well. Then I asked another question as an example of students that were doing the gun control. And said, well, what would be the person's point of view who would disagree with your conclusion on gun control? And they were very clear and articulate in what the differing point of view was. That tells me volumes about what they've done. Again, it's not just about understanding content. It's understanding the context of the content, understanding and being able to think flexibly around that, and understanding what other different people's points of view are. That's a true learner. You're building the intellectual capacity of students to know that they're not just egocentric about their point of view, but they understand that the world is made up of varying points of view. And it's important not to agree with everybody, but to understand where they're coming from. So that would be a second example. You may have been watching at the high school some of our sustainability courses. We had students, the Environmental Protection Agency recognized our students in our sustainability course for the great work that they did researching and advocating for the elimination of plastics. If you went to town meeting, you saw how clear and articulate our students were about why it was so important to cut back on the use of plastics. And if you were there, you saw the community as a whole give them a standing ovation because they were spot on in their presentations and had done their research. It was really quite exceptional. And the Environmental Protection Agency saw that, and the regional folks from the EPA came down and gave the award to our students. And it was a proud moment for those students, but also for the type of learning. That whole sustainability piece, if you remember, FEFI funds had helped send students to Costa Rica to find out what was happening across the world around sustainability. That's one project students worked on. We had another student looking at the invasive green crab problem and starting to make some real progress there. We had a third student that has been helping the school system think about how we can use solar panels on our high school to defray the cost of electricity for the Ipswich Public Schools, but more importantly, minimize our carbon footprints in the area. So I wanted to talk first about our review to give you at the elementary, the middle, and the high school just some quick examples of how learning is shifting. Because then the next piece I wanted to talk about is the type of work we're doing as the professionals, especially teachers, around creating that environment. Over the last 3 years, we've worked on developing a very clear vision for the district. And hopefully many of you have heard our SHOMS, our Successful Habits of Mind. That was built grassroots from the community, saying, what are the most successful people you know? What are the habits, their dispositions, etc., skill sets? And then we want to be proactively teaching and assessing those. So for us, it's thinking, communication, collaboration, creativity, perseverance, and self-management. And we're building our curriculum in the district, and curriculum is what we want students to know and be able to do. And we're building that curriculum using really strong state standards with the state frameworks, and taking our successful habits of mind and integrating those pieces, and then making sure that our instruction and our assessment is aligned with that. That's very important, because once you've defined the end, what you want students to know and be able to do, like the student in the elementary science fair, or the students that are trying to solve the green crab problem, that if we can align what we want those students to do with the content and the instruction and our assessment, then we can make sure that we're creating that environment for all of our students. So the next piece that we've done over the last few years is really change the way we look at technology. If you walk through Ipswich Public Schools, you will see at every level, all classrooms, technology being used on a regular basis. Well, how do we do that? We've integrated teacher leadership in technology integration. So no matter where you are in the district, we have 25 teacher leaders that help support other teachers integrate technology into the learning process. We also have another 25 that work on curriculum, and a third that help teachers collaborate well. So when you put all that together, that's what supports the learning environment I just described. And it's critically important, and we couldn't have done it without the community support through the override last year. We spent 2 years prior to the override passing building some of these foundational pieces. But the override gave us the resources and the personnel to implement this vision exceptionally well. And I want to say, for myself, for the school committee, and for all of the Ipswich staff, thank you to the community. If you're not directly connected with the schools, you may not know this, but the immediate and profound impact that the override has had has been felt by professionals and students across the district. So again, thank you. Sticking with the override a little bit, we've been very conscious about budgeting over the last 3 years. And as you know, we didn't just do an override that was for 2 or 3 years. We did a 5-year plan, and hopefully it becomes a 6-year plan, or maybe even a 7-year plan. And this year, we just had a budget approved that was exactly what we said it was going to be last year, as we were talking about and advocating for the override. To the penny, our budget came in is what we said it was going to. And what that's allowed us to do is to have continuity in our programming and our investment in a whole variety of different pieces, and it's really making a big impact. This year has been a great year for buildings. As you know, we're looking at an elementary building project. We've gone through, in this past year, we've identified and selected an outstanding architect for the project. We've had multiple opportunities for community to have input on where we go with that project. Just recently, the school committee decided that we'd be going with a 775 pupil building. We are going to be working aggressively as a school district to make sure that it brings equity to students, that we keep the sense of community that both of our elementary schools have, that sense of building relationships between teachers and students and between professionals and parents and the broader community. So by the time that school opens, we will have programs in place to make sure that students have the same type of wonderful culture that they have now, but with state-of-the-art facilities. So that's one piece. The other piece is taking care of the buildings that we have. And over the last 3 years, we've invested time, energy, and resources to bring our facilities back up to speed. If you look, we've done painting throughout all of our buildings. We've patched roofs that need to be patched. We've fixed restrooms and bathrooms to make sure that they will look looking good. We're putting carpeting and fixed parking lots. So right now, we have a little bit more work to do, but right now, if you went back 3 years ago, the before and after picture for our facilities is dramatic. With the support of the Institution for Savings and the Ipswich Educational Foundation, we've renovated our and capital funding that the town has been so generous in allowing us to spend on capital projects. But at the middle high school, we've redone the gym floor that hadn't been redone in years, and it looks absolutely beautiful. Our indoor track and cafeteria was starting to significantly degrade, and we've resurfaced that project. If you move outside as far as athletic facilities, resurfaced the tennis courts, we've resurfaced the track. We're in the process, again, with the support of the community and the Institution for Savings, in the middle of our turf field project. Ipswich Athletics, our high school athletics teams have been meeting with enormous success. That's because people like Tom Gallagher have done an incredible work recruiting and retaining the best coaches, investing in our facilities, and it's made a huge difference. Right now, as I sit here, we have both our lacrosse teams, male and female, well into the state tournament. Won just last night handily in the first round of state tournaments. And so we're excited about that. Ipswich Athletics is back in a big way. And that's been 3 years of a lot of hard work and investment to make that happen. Well, Ipswich, again, I think this year has been really a rewarding year for Ipswich Public Schools, and it's because of your support. Over the last 3 years, again, we've worked as a team, and I think we've done a really exceptional job. 3 years ago, we were looking at a budget deficit that would continue every year of $1.2 million. That, without your support, we would have, over the last couple of years, had to have cut that $1.2 million. And in a small school district, that would have been devastating. Instead, we invested in our school system, and now students are flourishing in classrooms that are well supplied, in reasonable class sizes, and where our vision is coming to fruition academically. So critically important. 3 years ago, when I spoke with teachers, they said we hadn't been doing any significant work on curriculum. Now every single teacher in the district is working on curriculum on a regular basis. We're developing we're capturing our curriculum electronically, so not only teachers who are developing it can benefit from it, but from all of their colleagues can. We're focusing on instruction and project-based type of learning, so students are more, we call it hands-on, minds-on education. With 3 years ago, we were concerned about Ipswich athletics and our competitiveness, and we were losing students to area schools and private schools because we didn't have the programming. Now we're having students competing at high levels in the state in a whole variety of different athletic teams. And our building project, we had 2 elementary buildings 5 years ago or 3 years ago that really had been had not been invested in, and it showed. And now we've invested in those facilities, but in addition to that, we have this great opportunity with the support close to 50% from the state as far as funding is concerned to build new state-of-the-art elementary facilities. And building and maintenance, we're maintaining those buildings. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that as far as the state of the union of Ipswich Public Schools, we're in a strong situation, and it's foundational because we expect to continue to grow and develop and become that world-class school system that Ipswich students deserve and Ipswich broader community wants. So I'm here today to say I really feel we're in good shape in the school system. I want to thank you for your support, and I look forward to this continued uninterrupted growth over the next several years. Thank you and enjoy the summer.